When I arrived at my sister's wedding, my seat was behind a curtain. Her FIL smirked. Only real family gets a table. There wasn't even a place card for me. Her groom giggled. Guess you're just extra. I picked up my gift, stood up, and proclaimed, cool, I'll take my extra $8,000 and go. His face dropped sooner than I expected. I, 26M, had always been the one my sister could count on. Growing up, I was the older brother who helped her through everything, from school projects to her first heartbreak. When she announced her engagement 6 months ago, I was genuinely happy for her. I had been saving money from my construction job for over 2 years, planning to give her something special for her wedding day. The venue was beautiful, a restored barn with string lights and flowers everywhere. I arrived 30 minutes early, wearing the one good suit I owned, carrying a carefully wrapped envelope containing the check I had written that morning. $8,000. Nearly every penny I had saved, because family meant everything to me. I walked up to the reception area, looking for my assigned table. The hostess, a young woman with a clipboard, seemed confused when I gave her my name. She flipped through several pages, then looked up with an apologetic expression. She told me there seemed to be some confusion with the seating arrangements and asked me to wait while she checked with someone. I stood there, watching other guests find their tables easily, each marked with elegant place cards and centerpieces. After what felt like forever, she returned and gestured toward the back corner of the venue. Behind a decorative curtain that partially blocked the view of the main reception area, there was a small table with 2 folding chairs. No centerpiece, no place cards, no table number. My chest tightened as I realized what this meant. This wasn't a mistake. This was intentional. I was about to ask for clarification when my sister's father-in-law appeared beside me. He was a tall man in an expensive suit, the kind who commanded attention when he entered a room. He looked at me, then at the isolated table, and his lips curved into what could barely be called a smile. He told me that only real family gets to sit at the proper tables, his tone making it clear that he didn't consider me worthy of that designation. The words hit me like a physical blow. Real family. I had been there for every milestone in my sister's life, while her new husband's family had known her for barely 2 years. Before I could respond, the groom appeared. He was younger than me, from a wealthy family that owned several businesses in town. His parents had paid for this entire wedding, something he never let anyone forget. He looked at me standing near the curtained table and actually giggled. He said I guess I was just extra, like an afterthought they had to accommodate, but didn't really want there. His casual cruelty was stunning. This was supposed to be a celebration of love and family unity, yet here I was being treated like an unwanted guest at my own sister's wedding. I felt the envelope in my jacket pocket, the weight of it suddenly feeling different. All those extra shifts I had worked, all the weekends I had spent building decks and installing drywall instead of going out with friends. All of it had been for this moment, for my sister, to show her how much she meant to me. I pulled out the envelope and looked at it. $8,000 represented months of my life, sacrifice, and love for someone who had apparently decided I wasn't worth a proper seat at her wedding. The groom was still standing there with that smug expression, waiting to see how I would react to being put in my place. I stood up from the folding chair I hadn't even sat down in yet. The noise of the reception continued around us, but in our little corner behind the curtain, everything felt very quiet and very clear. I told them that was cool. I would take my extra $8,000 and go. The change in the groom's expression was immediate and dramatic. The color drained from his face as he realized what I was holding. His father-in-law, who had been so confident moments before, suddenly looked uncertain. He asked me what I meant by $8,000, his voice lacking the dismissive tone he had used earlier. I explained that it was my wedding gift to my sister, the money I had been saving to help them start their new life together. But since I was apparently just extra, and only real family deserved proper treatment, I figured they wouldn't want extra money either. The groom started stammering, saying there had been a misunderstanding about the seating arrangements. He claimed they could find me a different table, somewhere more appropriate. But it was too late for backtracking. The damage was done, and they had shown me exactly how they really felt. I told them not to worry about it. I said I clearly didn't belong here anyway, so I would just head out and let the real family enjoy their celebration. The envelope went back into my pocket, and I started walking toward the exit. Behind me, I could hear the groom frantically trying to explain to his father what had just happened. The older man was asking questions about the money, clearly calculating what this would mean for their finances. $8,000 was apparently significant enough to matter, even to people who considered themselves wealthy. As I walked through the reception area, several relatives called out to me, asking where I was going. I simply told them I had somewhere else to be and kept walking. My sister was across the room in her beautiful dress, laughing with some bridesmaids, completely unaware of what had just transpired. I made it to my truck and sat there for a moment, processing what had happened. My phone started ringing almost immediately. It was my sister. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again. And again. The voicemail messages started piling up. My sister was asking where I was, saying people were looking for me. Then the groom called, his voice noticeably different from the casual cruelty he had displayed earlier. He was asking if we could talk, saying there had been some kind of mix-up. I drove home and opened a beer, sitting on my back porch where I could think clearly. The phone kept ringing. Text messages started coming in. My sister was asking what had happened, saying the groom was telling her some story about seating arrangements and a misunderstanding. By evening, I had 17 missed calls and dozens of text messages. The story was apparently spreading through the family. Some relatives were asking me to come back to the reception. Others were demanding to know what had really happened. I finally answered when my sister called for the 10th time. She was crying, asking me why I had left her wedding. She said her new husband was telling her that there had been some confusion about tables, but that they had tried to fix it and I had stormed out anyway. I asked her if she had known about the seating arrangement. Had she approved putting me behind a curtain while everyone else sat at properly decorated tables? Her silence told me everything I needed to know. She finally admitted that her husband's family had strong opinions about the guest list and seating arrangements. She said they were paying for everything, so they got to make certain decisions. She claimed she had tried to argue for me, but there were complications with family dynamics I didn't understand. I told her that I understood perfectly. I understood that she had chosen her new family's money and opinions over her own brother. I understood that I wasn't worth fighting for when it came to their arbitrary social hierarchies. And I understood that my $8,000 apparently mattered more to them than I did. She started crying harder, saying it wasn't like that. She insisted she loved me and wanted me there, but planning a wedding was complicated and sometimes compromises had to be made. She begged me to come back, saying we could work everything out. I told her to enjoy her party and hung up. Update 1. The next morning brought a new wave of drama. My phone started ringing at 7 a.m. with calls from the groom's father. He wanted to meet for coffee to discuss what he called a regrettable miscommunication. His tone was completely different from the night before, respectful, almost pleading. I agreed to meet him at a diner downtown, mainly out of curiosity about what he thought he could accomplish. When I arrived, he was already there with coffee and what looked like a prepared speech. He started by apologizing for the confusion about seating arrangements. He claimed there had been last-minute changes to accommodate elderly relatives, and somehow my placement had been overlooked. He insisted there had been no intention to slight me personally. I listened to his carefully crafted explanation, noting how different his demeanor was from the night before. When he finished, I asked him about his comment regarding real family. I wanted to know if that had also been a miscommunication. His face reddened slightly, and he admitted that emotions had been running high and perhaps he had spoken inappropriately. He said wedding planning brought out stress in everyone, and sometimes people said things they didn't mean. Then he got to the real reason for the meeting. He asked about the gift I had mentioned, wondering if perhaps we could discuss it further. He said that young couples starting out could really use financial support, and it would be unfortunate if family disagreements prevented them from getting help they needed. I told him that I agreed completely. Young couples did need support from people who cared about them. But since I was apparently not real family and was just extra, I had decided my money would be better spent elsewhere. He pressed the issue, suggesting that perhaps I had misunderstood the situation and should reconsider. He mentioned that my sister would be heartbroken if I withdrew my support over what he continued to characterize as a simple mistake. I finished my coffee and stood up. I told him that I hadn't misunderstood anything. The previous night had been very educational about where I stood with my sister's new family. I thanked him for clarifying everyone's true feelings so efficiently. As I left, he called after me, asking if I was really going to punish my sister over something her husband's family had done. I turned back and told him that I wasn't punishing anyone. I was simply accepting the reality they had presented to me and acting accordingly. Update 2. By Tuesday, the situation had escalated beyond what I had expected. My sister showed up at my house unannounced, still in casual clothes, but looking like she hadn't slept. She had been calling nonstop since Sunday, leaving increasingly desperate voicemails. She knocked on my door repeatedly until I finally answered. When I opened it, she immediately started talking about how sorry she was and how the whole thing had gotten out of hand. She said her husband was mortified about what had happened and wanted to make things right. I invited her in and made coffee while she continued explaining. She told me that after I left, the reception had been tense and uncomfortable. Several relatives had asked where I was, and when word spread about what had happened, people started leaving early. Apparently, our uncle had confronted the groom's father directly, demanding to know why I had been treated so poorly. She said her new husband had spent the rest of the evening trying to control damage, but the story was spreading through both families. People were taking sides, and it was threatening to create a permanent rift between the families. I asked her again if she had known about the seating arrangement beforehand. This time, she broke down completely and admitted the truth. She said her husband's family had insisted that certain people be given priority seating, and there hadn't been enough premium tables for everyone they wanted to accommodate. She claimed she had argued for me, but her husband had convinced her that I would understand and wouldn't make a big deal about sitting in a less prominent spot. She said they had never intended for me to be insulted or made to feel unwelcome. I pointed out that there had been no place card for me at all, which suggested this hadn't been a last-minute accommodation issue. Someone had deliberately decided I didn't warrant the same treatment as other guests. She admitted that her husband's family had questioned whether I really needed to be there at all, given that I didn't know many people and wouldn't really fit in with their social circle. She said she had insisted I be invited, but compromises had been made regarding the arrangements. When she mentioned the money again, asking if I would reconsider my decision, I realized that the financial impact was becoming a real problem for them. $8,000 was apparently a significant portion of what they needed for their planned honeymoon and down payment on a house. I told her that I understood her position, but she had made her choice. She had chosen to prioritize her husband's family's opinions over her relationship with me. She had allowed them to treat me as less important than their other guests, and now she was dealing with the consequences of that decision. She begged me to think about our relationship over the years, reminding me of all the times we had supported each other. She said one mistake shouldn't destroy everything we had built together. I explained that this hadn't been a mistake. It had been a choice to value their approval and money over treating me with basic respect. I told her that I would always love her, but I couldn't pretend that what had happened was acceptable just to make everyone comfortable. Update 3. 3 weeks later, the full impact of the situation had become clear. My sister's marriage was struggling under the financial pressure and family drama that had resulted from the wedding incident. The groom's family was angry about the money they thought they would receive, and my side of the family had largely stopped speaking to them. My sister called me one final time, and this conversation was different from all the others. She sounded exhausted and defeated. She told me that she was beginning to understand what had really happened that night and why I had reacted the way I did. She said that living with her husband's family's expectations and judgment was harder than she had anticipated. They had opinions about everything from how she dressed to who she spent time with, and she was starting to feel like she was losing herself in trying to please them. She admitted that she had been wrong to allow them to treat me poorly, and she understood now that it hadn't been about seating arrangements. It had been about power and control, about establishing a hierarchy where their approval mattered more than family relationships. She asked if there was any way we could rebuild our relationship, acknowledging that she would need to set boundaries with her husband and his family going forward. She said she missed me and realized that she had sacrificed something important for people who didn't really care about her happiness. I told her that I had never stopped loving her, but things couldn't go back to the way they were. She had shown me that our relationship was conditional, dependent on not inconveniencing her other relationships. That was something I would always remember. However, I said I was willing to work on rebuilding trust over time, but it would require her to demonstrate through actions that she valued our relationship. Words weren't enough anymore. As for the money, I told her that I had already donated it to a scholarship fund for kids from working-class families who needed help with college expenses. It felt like a better use of the savings than giving it to people who had treated me like I was worthless. The conversation ended with her crying, but for the first time, I felt like she truly understood what her choices had cost us both. Whether she would follow through on her promises to change remained to be seen, but at least the truth was finally out in the open. I learned that standing up for yourself sometimes means losing people you love, but it also means keeping your self-respect. The $8,000 I had saved was gone, but I had gained something more valuable, the knowledge that I wouldn't accept being treated as less than I was worth, not even by family.